Got it.
Yo, what's up? This is Splendid Radio on Pharcyde TV. My co-host Jeremy Scipio is out there hitting the stage, but I got something. I've had this concept that I wanted to bring to Splendid for a minute, and I was trying to figure out the bits and pieces. The original concept was like either James and then another someone involved in like the illustration world or something like that, or Sean Ink Pulp and someone involved in the illustration world. And I wanted to kind of talk semi-nerd talk about like comic books and kind of like stuff like that, because I'm like a full comic book fan. Like the comics that I know are via Netflix spin-off shows, which I'm sure go far away from the original storylines. You know what I'm saying?
Aww.
As well as
I would say that's faux. You're still a
that's
fan. That's not faux.
No, that's faux. That's faux for real. And then the Marvel and the DC movies, which I'm sure those are like that. Those don't follow the storyline at all either. It's like everything is sensationalized. But that's kind of what led me into the comic world and like kind of like all that stuff. Like now I was with a guy 2 weeks ago to 3 weeks ago that's a super nerd when it comes to that, Dale from the Bay. Now if I was to ask him, which we gonna do a little something too, but if I was to ask him, I don't bring anything up around Dale. See, the thing about Dale, what he knows, he'll know it to a level that will supersede what the average person would. So that's not a topic that I would bring up with him. But nah, man, I'm glad I got both you guys tapped in. I want to start with you, James, real quick. I'm gonna ask a couple questions to build up to who you are, and then we're gonna, get into all that. But when you were in middle school, what was the soundtrack to your experience?
Oh, middle school. Wow. It's so interesting because 7th grade and 8th grade were like poles apart. Started with the Ramones, I think, in 7th grade, and then ended up in electro by the end of 7th grade, and then 8th grade was just hip hop. Well, I mean, what we would call hip hop now, but it was, this is 1984. So everything's really in full swing in terms of the whole breakdancing, graffiti art. We had a club in town. I've talked about, I think on a previous episode, where we had a club that had live MCs and a resident DJ from the local radio station. And Bambaataa came by and performed. I mean, it was a real scene there by the time 8th grade rolled around, and then hip hop just took over. I mean, it was, so it was all mixtapes off the radio, off our local station. That was my soundtrack.
Dope. And you, Mike?
I mean, yeah, what year would that have been? I know Digital Underground was out, so that was a big one for me. Wu-Tang, Pharcyde, like all that, like I was right there for that. That's I was the target bullseye for.
That's a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so lucky. Like I look back and I'm like, I didn't realize how lucky we were. That was a good time. It really was. So it was that, and then I grew up in the Bay, so all the radio stations would like all the DJs would mix live. So it's like, KML power mixers or whatever, and it's just like you just hear, one verse chorus out. So we just get so many, I'm used to hearing a lot of songs in like 20 minutes or whatever. So it was just like not only the best music was coming out, but the best use of it, and was just that creative, like, the mixing and juggling and scratching was just like, all right, that's how I heard. Yeah, that was my soundtrack.
So Mike, I'm guessing this is probably like early 90s. That's probably was it FM20? What was Cubert's crew?
FM20, like, yeah.
Yes, it was all that sort of turntablism was just starting around then. And then it just blew up. And remember, by the mid 90s, it was just like this. I loved it. I loved that came back, because that was always a part of hip hop I think I missed, but you were right in the thick of that.
Yeah, I mean, because they're all from Daly City, so
Yeah.
to us it was like, oh, everyone has amazing DJs around the corner, like whatever.
Not like Daly City.
everybody was in a DJ group.
By the mid 90s, it was just
Everybody, like it was just like,
I love that came back. That was always a part of hip.
that's what we did, and that's what everyone aspired to be. And even if you didn't like technically DJ, you were a part of like a group. You know what I mean?
Was there something in the water in Daly City that made everybody become like amazing scratching DJs? That's an interesting concentration there.
Yeah. Again, I had no idea how like unique it was. So,
yeah, that's funny.
I don't know. I think the radio had a lot to do with it, because by the time I was aware of what was going on, they were like fully, throwing down on the radio. So we're just kind of like, how do they do that? Like, what are they using? Like, I had no reference of like, oh, you have two turntables and a mixer.
Yeah.
All that. Kind of figure it out. But it was just, I think it was that combination of just like hearing the songs, because it was basically like, if you listen to the radio all day, especially on a Saturday, because they would mix at night, and during the week they mix on the noon time, and then 5 o'clock, you would it's basically like teaching you how to mix. So you'd get the radio play, during the day, and then you'd hear them mix those same songs, like the acapella of Tribe Called Quest with like Wu-Tang instrumental. Like, oh, all right, I know these songs because I heard them all day, throughout the day, and then you hear them mixed at night. Like, damn, all right, it's a class, every day.
Yeah.
I think that was your cheat. That was your cheat code, Mike. I think a lot of people didn't interpret it the way that you interpreted it. As a class, but nah, that's dope. So I'm gonna start with you, Mike, and then I'm gonna go to James. So Mike, you're like my technical guy. You're the guy that I go to for 90% of the time when it's something technical. If I'm not around Brown, if I'm around Brown and he's not busy or whatever, I might shoot something to him. But you're the guy that I go to just like 90, like if I'm gonna buy something or whatever. So with that being said, how do you think hip hop has influenced marketing, and just products? And the reason that I tie the both of those together, because you're a technical cat, but because you're a technical cat, you buy or the things that you don't buy, you're on top of a lot of knowledge. You know what I'm saying? Or technology. That's what I'll say. Technology going on. So how do you think hip hop influences the marketing of products?
Marketing of products, like a product, like a car or a microphone, or like, what are you talking about?
Whatever, food, beverage.
I think hip hop just makes. There's a thing about it that just makes whatever is in its orbit like cool. You know what I mean? Someone told me this a while, like I was probably in like high school or something, and I was really starting to like just really sort of kind of just get into it. I was a DJ by then. I was doing all the things, you know what I mean? And he goes, man, everything you do is like cool. I'm like, I'm not really doing. I don't think it's me. I think it's just what I'm doing. You know what I mean? It's just cool. It's just cool.
The essence of cool.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm just borrowing that. Like, I mean, rock people are cool too, but I don't think that it's cool in the same way it's so, I think with hip hop, it's like you can, that is a culture, a lifestyle.
Universal. It's a universal drum beat.
Exactly. And not to say that like, again, rock or, jazz or whatever is not universal, but I think there's just something about, there's an immediacy about it. There's an urgency about it. And there's just it's very welcoming. I feel like I've never felt like, oh man, even during the backpacker days, it was never like, ah, I can't get into that. Like, no, just listen to you know Black Star or whatever. Like, it's fine, and
Well,
then go to the club. It's look, everyone's having a great time.
I'll say that's like kind of the three of us, like our genre of hip hop. But I don't think too much of that drill music is welcoming. You know what I'm saying? Not too much. Not
Maybe not to
not
us.
yeah. You know what? You're right. Because there are some people that is their
That's their whole identity.
yeah, no, that's her thing. But the reason why I asked about hip hop and marketing is because now with like all this stuff, like this next level, uh these next level publishing dollars that are being generated, it makes me kind of think. So I was watching YouTube on Sunday, and I don't pay for the whatever the free subscription is or whatever. So of course, I'm not getting YouTube for free. I'm watching commercials that are generating revenue and all this. And so I want to say within like 5 minutes, I saw a commercial that had like a war song in it. I saw a commercial that had like, it was like Marvin Gaye or something like that. And then there was a commercial that had something else in it. And it was dope that people are using this music to, sell products or advertise or whatever. But then I something just kind of made me think like, and then the Beatles. I think there was something with the Beatles too. I'm almost positive it was the Beatles or someone, a group as popular as the Beatles. Well, shoot, no, by now you could say there's a group as popular, but I said like, damn, the music that they're using, these people are dead. Most of them are they're probably dead, and there's probably these big publishing houses that are controlling publishing that are allowing this. And I was like, damn, would these artists really be down with their music just used like that? You know what I'm saying? And it brings me to something that Brown and I are kind of working with right now, where there is a situation where someone wants him to do some stuff, and they want to have the option to do whatever they want. Which in some sense, like if you're gonna do that, it really has to be worth it for the artist to just give somebody whatever. But I look at it and I'm like, dang, and I guess the question that I want to ask you, Mike, being a you do music and then you're in the know of many things. How do you feel about people using your whatever your art form is or whatever it is that you do, and you having no say in what they, you know what I'm saying, what the usage is? And then I'm gonna go to you and with the same question, and I'll reiterate it, James.
I do feel like I have a lot of people takes because it's the internet now. People just take stuff and then repost it or whatever, and
Right.
they'll claim that it's theirs, and that feels pretty bad. But so I think that I think it's a little different for me because that's like I'll talk about people actually taking it and profiting it from it in their way. I have no say whatsoever because it's the Wild West and people don't care. And
Yep.
but I mean I definitely I guess it depends on because I know there's artists like with Nirvana, like they don't use their music for commercials.
Now,
And now yes,
Good point.
now,
they've
Yeah.
been
It's a good point.
I think the BC Boys are similar. Although I've heard their stuff in a
I've heard
couple.
this stuff on a commercial.
Sabotage.
Yeah, Sabotage has been used a bunch.
Yeah.
I think these Intergalactic for a trailer recently, but maybe that's
Yeah.
different. That's not the commercial. That's not a commercial.
It's funny. I've heard that as a trailer too. It's so funny to
Yeah,
say that.
yeah. So I mean, that's a weird. It's like I've licensed some stuff for commercials, and I'm totally happy with that. And but I think if somebody else were like the
That's
steward
different.
of that, it's different. Yeah, I don't have that
Licensed.
situation.
I'm
Yeah, I
saying
don't.
people, and then real quick with you, James. I was gonna get into this a little later, but man, I can't even hold it under my tongue, man. I watched that video so many times. I probably watch it about twice a week. James is the illustrator. You might have did it with a partner, right? Or did you do it yourself?
What's this?
All caps.
No, that was me.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry, I was about
And backgrounds by my girlfriend at the time.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wait,
oh
what?
man.
Yeah.
So James, he did the video for MF Doom all caps.
All caps. Like
Yes.
what? I'm gonna shut up. What am I doing? I'm out of here.
I know
No,
people,
later.
man. I know people. A few.
I know that, but I didn't know specifically he did that.
Yeah,
Oh my
man.
God.
Nah, man. He's man. And it's so crazy because I'm gonna flip off of all caps for a quick sec, but like James was so we were talking off the camera or whatever about how James and I met, and we're kind of trying to figure the timeline or whatever. But I remember going to James' apartment, and he had this apartment that was upstairs, and like he was like he had everybody didn't have a Mac tower, you know what I'm saying? like and I want to say you did have like a yeah, like I mean he had like
G4.
Yep, he had
My
like,
first computer I ever bought.
he had Mac stuff like 2002, 2001. Like he was already in the he bit that apple. And I think that apple is very symbolic. Very symbolic.
I'm so flattered, Greg. I never knew that you were that impressed by my stuff. Greg was the first person I ever saw with a BlackBerry.
Oh.
Ah.
I was like, what is he doing on that phone? He's typing? It's got little keys?
It's like a computer.
It's like,
and I probably
this is
kept
insane.
him alive, man.
You were like this. It was the first time I ever saw him do something. Wait, I gotta write an email. I'm like, you're writing an email with your phone? That was the first, you were the first person, like 2002.
Hey, man.
Wow.
And I stayed with him as long as I could, man.
Yeah.
I say I stayed with him to about 2020. Like
Wow.
about
You did. I remember that.
on Samsung.
I was like, Greg, what are you doing?
But I still can't do Apple though. I still can't, not for my phone. And thanks to some of Mike Relm and his technology. But you know what? We're not gonna even give them no shout outs. Real quick. I want to give a shout out to Shane Lawson Brand, a dope shoe company. Check him out on IG, Shane Lawson Brand. Booty Brown has a song, Suddenly. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, he has a new dance tune called Suddenly. You can go to Booty Brown's Instagram, Facebook, check it out, featuring Amy Correa Bell. And it's a pretty dope dance tune off of his upcoming project, Ultra Hip Funk Wave. So yep, I said I was gonna start shouting the sponsors out, you know what I'm saying? Giving them a little love. But nah, man, James was he was definitely ahead of his game and all that. And then I don't know how I figured it out or who told me, but I really wasn't into Doom when you did that video. So it really didn't mean anything to me. Like there was no connection. And then, I'm always super late. And then when I got it, I was like, oh shit. Ben Grimm is jumping through buildings or I think was that supposed to be Ben Grimm? Kind of, sort of.
The character himself?
Yeah.
I mean, it was just supposed to be
a big
Silver Age avatar of this guy, MF Doom, through the song. That's what that was meant to be.
Okay. Well, like I said,
and Madlib.
Knowledge of the comic books and all that stuff is faux. And I know it based off of Netflix. And
well, what's interesting is that I had kind of I was working in an animation studio at the time. I think I'm reiterating everything I said at the last conversation we had, but I was working in an animation studio and was kind of getting into some of the more primitive animation that you saw in the 70s. Like there was a studio called Grant Ray Lawrence, and they would literally take the artwork from old Marvel comics and just slide them. You can find them on YouTube. They're really low budget, but that's how you saw your Marvel characters on TV back in the 60s and 70s. And they're really primitive, and it's not animation. It's literally like motion graphics. So I thought, oh, it'd be so fun to do that for someone now. And I wrote Wolf. I knew him. I wrote him and said, hey, it'd be cool to do something like this for Mad Lib. And then he was like, oh, hey, speaking of whom, we're working with this guy Doom, and we're going to put out this record, Mad Lib. It's going to be really cool, blah, 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 blah. And that's how that happened. And then I thought, I've got just the idea. And I went up and I showed Madlib and Chris the videos. Like, gotta watch these old videos. And they were like bemused, I'm going to do this. And then Chris was like, cool. But the thing about, and I have to underline this, man. The thing about working with Chris, Peanut Butter Wolf, he is just one of those guys that just says, you know what? This is your thing. Do your thing. I don't want to have any input. Just make it amazing. It puts that kind of trust in you. And like, as you roll through the years and as you realize, like, God, not every client is like that. And you realize how special that person was. And he was special. He still is. I consider him a dear friend,
Well,
did you hear, sorry.
No, go ahead, Mike.
Oh, did you hear the song first and then thought, oh, this is perfect because it's like that old, because they were sampling like the those comic samples from that era?
Well, nope, because I had gotten Money Folder. The song Money Folder was what we were originally going to do. So they sent Money Folder, and I thought, oh, this is so great, blah 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 blah. It's like, this is up my alley. It's all, guys, I just love Matt. I love Quasimodo. That guy for me was like, he was it. He was what hip hop should have always been. It reminded me of, there's just that there's always those markers, that those people that come along and they kind of go, oh, that's why I like this genre or this thing. And he was that for me. He's like, oh yeah, just like Prince Paul, like the Dust Brothers. Like, he brought in all that very scratchy, very organic stuff. And I feel like he was kind of carrying the torch for whatever you want to call that. Scratch Pickles, the same thing. I mean, they were really on, that was them. And here's this guy in LA doing, like, again, carrying that on. So I just loved it. And so when his music, and when I finally got the All Cap song, I thought, like, this would be great for this, And it was 2 minutes. Yeah. Because what you don't want when you're an animator is for someone to hand you a 4-minute or 5-minute song, because it's going to kill you. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of work. I did that for what you might call it, a drum and bass artist. This guy, 12th Planet. About 7 or 8 years ago, he did a song with Skrillex and a few other people that kind of wow. And I was like, oh, this will be fun. And then they gave me the song, and it was like 5 minutes. And I said, do you have a cut down version of this? And they were like, no, that's it. That's all we got. So I had to bill them. It was a pretty big budget, but it took a year, and it was just it was a shit ton of work. So regardless, a 2-minute song is kind of like, okay, now we're talking. So
yeah.
Did you ever get to meet the villain?
I talked to him on the phone, and then I met him in person at the Stone's Throw house, the house up in Mount Washington. I went over there just to go, I think, pick up a check or something like that. And when you went over there, it was ridiculous. It was like Egon, Madlib, Jeff Jank, and Wolf, the four of them just hanging out watching football. And you never knew who was going to be kind of running in and out of there. There'd be like Dilla was there a few times. I mean, there's just this way station of like always at least one beat junkie. there was always one of those guys. There was always like J-Rock or Rhythmatic or somebody like that was always just kind of hanging. This people you just ran into. This is the early 2000s. It was a very small community. I know, Mike, I mean, you've been around. I know that you remember how that was. It was a very small community. Yeah. So, and they go, hey, this is this guy Doom. And he didn't have any hood on or anything. He was like, hey, how's it going? But then I remember they introduced him as Dan, I think.
Mhm.
I think I got introduced him as
Mhm.
Dan by Wolf. Just kind of, hey, this is Dan. Hey, how's it going? And then someone told me later that was Doom. And I go, oh, okay. But it was a really quick handshake. It wasn't, but the phone conversation was more like we spent an hour just talking about comic books. And I think I realized, oh, he's like a fan of the same shit I am. And that's lovely because it's kind of like, you know, they're going to get it. There's not going to be any problems. And there wasn't. He was fucking stoked. So, yeah.
You know, it's funny. I didn't get into Doom until it's crazy. So Danger Mouse, when he was working on the Danger Doom stuff.
I worked on that. Yeah.
Okay. So Danger Mouse we were cool from him. He produced Demon Days, which Brown was on that, the Dirty Harry or whatever. So we stayed cool. So he was like my guy that was kind of in the industry, but we were always like, he always just kept it really cool. Like he never got Hollywood on me. Like he just always just a cool dude, whatever.
It's a real level-headed, smart guy, man. I met him once too. Yeah, it's like a really.
I tell you off camera, man. He worked some hell of a deals, dude. Like well, what I will say is
kind of wise beyond his years. That's what I always figured with him.
What happened is when he how he got hooked up with Adult Swim was Adult Swim had opened up an office in Atlanta, and one of the guys went to a record store and had found one of Danger Mouse's CDs and just hit him up off the CD and was like, you know, we'll like license your music for the shows type of thing, and let's work it out, because they didn't have a huge budget, and at the time Danger Mouse wasn't huge. So he just parlayed that into just being Mr. Cartoon Network, man. Well, not Cartoon Network. It was Cartoon Network, not Adult Swim, Cartoon Network, because like all the cartoons and stuff, he would have his music in the commercials. Like he was one of the first dudes that had their music in the commercials and the in-between stuff and all that. And then he parlayed that into, just I ain't gonna even go into it, but he did it incredible. But the funny thing about it was when he was working with Doom on Danger Doom, that's when I kind of started listening to Doom. And I was like, I mean, I was a fan of KMD and all that, but like I didn't know the words to one Doom song, and it was like nothing like that. And then after I heard Danger Doom, it was kind of like, oh man, this dude is like someone's kept. Put it this way, I eat meat. I live behind a carniceria. I didn't eat carne asada living in Southern California, Harbor City. I didn't eat carne asada probably till like 2006, maybe 2007. And I I wow, what is this? Wait. What is this great tasting meat? Everybody
doing?
How?
I know.
You have a friend who owns a restaurant.
That was after.
Okay.
After, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm late on stuff. So that's what that was. But going further into the situation, you full-time illustrator, James, doing your thing. How do you think brands inspire you?
What was that?
How do you think brands inspire you?
Me?
Like say for instance, like like an Adidas, a Puma, like a brand.
I mean, I think it's just, I don't know if
you don't
it's
dig
hard
that
to
deep
say.
into it. And that's fine.
I mean, it's not, I know how the sausage is made. I've worked with so much of that stuff. I've done that my whole life, that I've been at pitch meetings where they talk about people as almost like the way they refer to consumers. Yeah, I've been there for so long. I've worked in advertising, and seeing pitch decks, and you only have to work in that for so long before you realize, oh, this is all such a bunch of bullshit.
Brainwashing. No, you know what?
So
you explained everything. Me, I eat meat.
Okay.
I've had many people try to get me to watch chicken documentaries and how hot dogs are made and all that kind of stuff. And I think you said it great. You said, you know how the sausage is made. So
Right.
as far as what a brand was intended to do for you, it's not going to have the same kick because you understand that it's just basically most brands are something that looks good or it performs, well to a certain degree, but they throw bells and whistles and oohs and ahs behind it in order to get you to kind of.
Well, listen, I shop at Trader Joe's. Okay. And I don't just shop there, but I do shop there. It's like, well, you can get that crap anywhere. Why do you need to go there? Well, they have it all, and the people all wear flower shirts, and everybody seems so friendly, and it's all like, that's a brand. So they got me. I mean, that's something that, so I'm not immune to it at all. So there are certain things I like. I don't know why I like them, but yeah, that's because they know what they're doing. They know when you go into a Vons, it's like going into a tomb and everybody looks depressed. And when you go to a Trader Joe's, everybody's having a great day. What are they doing right? They're doing something right, man. I mean, that's whatever you want to call it. It's marketing the brand. It's,
And when you go into a Walmart, you like, oh man, what did I just come into? You know what I'm saying?
It's a warehouse. It's like Home Depot. Like, why are there workers here? It's just a warehouse. All they need is a little clicker to go beep, and that's it. And that's what it's going to be probably in a few years.
I was speaking more of the element of culture that goes on too. Is
Oh yeah.
There's an element.
Gross.
You like, man, I'm waiting for it to jump off any minute, man. Not with me, but just people getting they're mad and they're moving around with their carts fast and cutting people off. And yeah, but
it's like 7-Eleven. Have you guys noticed that? Like 7-Eleven's a really aggro place. I don't know what that's about. Is that something relatively new? 7-Eleven's like people seem tense.
It's always been intense.
Maybe they like it like that, so you just get in and get out. Like you don't hang out at 7-Eleven, because we used to hang. There was a 7-Eleven where I grew up, like, and they would all have like Street Fighter in it, so we'd be there for like 8 hours. You know what I mean?
Video games. Oh, I remember
in the corner. I'm pretty sure that didn't do well for 7-Eleven as a business.
If you want a nice 7-Eleven, you're gonna have to go to Japan where you can get some karaage chicken and
different vibe.
I'll bet.
And you're not gonna have anybody sleeping out in front of it and all that kind of stuff. They're not gonna go for none of that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They have good sushi at their 7-Elevens.
Yeah, I'm full Japanese food too, man.
That's right. You don't eat sushi.
Yeah, well,
wow.
I eat
really?
everything around it.
Oh.
I eat everything around it. I've tried like 5 times. I was in Colorado at one of the resorts, and this guy was like, I'm a sushi chef, and I bet you I can. And I didn't. Well, you know what he did? He seared it, and then I was able to groove with it. But that's faux.
Is it just the raw? Okay. You don't like the raw
the texture, man. Yeah, the texture. And I don't care what it is.
The soft, buttery texture of
a yellow tail.
The only buttery texture I like is brisket. I like the soft, buttery texture of some brisket. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, Mike, Trump's arrest, along with him getting sued. So I'm gonna give you my.
Well, you know what happened today.
Yeah, and that's why I'm bringing it up. But I'm gonna give you my quick little ooh and ah. So when everybody was like, "Oh man, Trump's about to get arrested, man, he's about to get arrested," my mind told me, "Nah, man, people don't like him, and he is what's the word? Obnoxious. That's the word. Obnoxious. He's a very obnoxious person, but he has so much money and so much influence. They would never get a picture of him in handcuffs, man. That would never go down, dude. That, like, America will never have that. We might have a lot of stuff, but we will never get a picture of that, man. It probably would cause civil unrest, man. The sad part about it, but we would never see that. So them saying that he was getting arrested was kind of baffling to me, because at the same time, I was kind of like, if they did really arrest him, it would probably guarantee the guy getting elected. Like it would, like his fans, his fanatics are so crazy, they'd be like, oh man, he, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that's dope. So for you, Mike, what did Trump getting arrested mean? And then let's go into a little bit about the dog.
I'm glad you got that. I'm glad you asked Mike that one.
Why am I getting this one?
Oh no, we
Then again, what do
James.
we? My brain. I'm still tripping that James did all caps. Go ahead. What are we talking about?
Oh, come on.
That is, dude. That is like his theme song.
Mike is like, I like my life here in
Oh
Southern
my God.
California. No problems, no nothing. No.
So what was your question about Trump's arrest?
So did you think that it was actually going to make a difference or do anything, or just pretty much dog and pony?
By now, no, I didn't think so.
Mm.
And when they announced it, I was like, oh, this could be interesting. And then a few days later, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be nothing. And then it just sort of like, you know. But I think you're right. I think it would have kind of ignited his followers in a way that we do not want to see, and our country would not survive.
Yeah. That, you know, the thing about it, what I've learned in this whole cancel culture and everybody kind of going crazy about stuff is the negative part of it is that it makes people anticipate people's downfall. And regardless how horrible somebody is, I don't think we need to spend time worried about somebody's downfall. Like, man, if that's going to happen, that's going to happen or whatever. But it's kind of crazy because and for me, where I realized that the media was probably not the healthiest thing for me, and not because I want to hide from what's going on in the world or whatever, but I remember when Hillary was running for office, and I was glued to CNN, and I was like all caught up in this thing of her and Trump, and I was like, okay, there's no way Trump's gonna be president. They're gonna give us something so juicy, and I literally was watching the media glued.
That's what I said.
Waiting for this juicy steak that I never saw, and then Hillary Clinton. You know, they had a little bit of something on her or whatever, but then I was thinking, okay, well, there's going to be a juicier steak about Hillary. And then I was kind of like, man, the media is bullshit. I'm like, man, they got fools up here glued to this, and it had nothing to do with like actual news. Nothing to do with actual news. So the second part of Trump and this whole what's going on now, Mike, bring us up to speed on that.
I believe today he lost the civil case, I think, and so he has to pay, and so he is. Does that mean he's officially a sex offender?
Well, this is what I'll say from the little bit that I saw. So, you know, it happened years ago. He didn't have sex with her. He did something with his hands, and so they're trying to say that he did something with his hands. But the interesting part about it is, in a true Trump fashion, so, you know, he says, no, you know, the girl's not attractive or, you know, whatever, not my type, style or whatever. But they had a picture of her, and then he thought that the picture was his ex-wife. Like the picture of the lady who did it was his ex-wife. And then he says, oh no, the picture was blurry, but they showed the picture. The picture clearly wasn't blurry. And then I was like, I'll tell you what I feel like. Whenever they talk about Trump, I know, you know, Mike, you might not know, James. Do you know who Delvin the Great is?
I don't know who that is.
He goes, got him. You know, he used to travel with a comedian. I can't remember what comedian, but he has a condition. I don't know what it is or whatever, but he does this thing where he says, got him. And I feel like, man, every time they get me to look at Trump, I'm like, oh man.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Over this
Got
bull.
him. No, it's a good point.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go to you, and then we're gonna go to James. So Mike, Marvel or DC?
That's a good one. I grew up a Marvel head for sure, and the past 10 years has been amazing for Marvel. Like that, dude, we will never see a run from Iron Man to Endgame. We'll never, that will never happen.
Yeah, that's over.
That is,
yeah.
that was a special thing. And so we'll see how things unfold. I think DC's, dude, I love the Batman. That shit was incredible to me. I love that. So I'm kind of, I think in terms of how special that run was, that's Marvel. DC can't. Marvel can't even redo what they did in that run. But I'm interested, to see what DC's got coming up.
Real quick, and then I'm going to ask you the same, James. But real quick question, and I'm going to start with you on this, James, and then we're going to go back to that, and then we'll go. But I'm a fan of Black Adam.
That was good.
And but it's crazy because so Jeremy has this thing where he feels it's the most horrible movie, or one of the most horrible movies ever made. And as a matter of fact, I was messing with him on Sunday because I've seen the movie about 7 times, and I sent him a screenshot.
Wow, really? People still do that?
No.
They watch a movie.
You really like Black Adam?
Man, when I like something, I like it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If I like it, I like it. So, but okay, so the movie was dope, but one of the other things about Black Adam I thought was really dope was, man, The Rock was so powerful, he literally resurrected Superman from the dead and had him at the end credits. They had dialogue with each other, man. When dude, homeboy was wiped off of the franchise, he was done, he was gone. There was no more. They didn't know who the next Superman was going to be. And that gives me hope that even though they're talking about this other Superman, I think we will see, is his last name pronounced Cavill? Cavill?
Henry Cavill, yeah.
Yeah, Henry Cavill. I don't think he's just totally done, man. I just don't think he's totally done like that. But
I think he is. Dude, that's the other thing about DC that's weird right now is they're scrapping that whole, they scrapped the entire, dude, Batgirl was basically done, and they said no, we'd rather take a tax write-off.
They just tabled it. Oh, yeah. That's so weird.
I couldn't believe that. I was like, what? You could just do that? Okay, that's a lot of money. But yeah, I think they're moving on.
All right.
I think they are. Yeah.
So you, James, Marvel or DC?
I grew up with Marvel. Okay. I think DC was by the time I started collecting comics, like this is like 76. I was like 6 years old. So I was starting to buy them. Marvel just seemed more, I don't know what it was. It was more universal. There were more superheroes from other countries. There were, that was exciting. And there was a lot of juice then. I think the new X-Men had just come out. It was all the monster comics. I think DC was for slightly older kids. And I think by the time I got into collecting, like when I was at 10 or 11, the DC comics were just out of reach. They were like number 300, 400 or something like that. And they've been around for decades, where the Marvel books were a little fresher, it seemed like. And then they were newer. Superman, I think at that time, had kind of gone through so many iterations. The movies had come out as a TV show. It kind of seemed like it was, the Marvel stuff was like the what do you call that? The kind of scrap, it was a little scrappier, much more counterculture. It was all hippies working there in the 70s. Of all the stuff I read, they were all super like burnout guys, because by then the World War II generation had been pushed out and retired. The Stan Lee and Jack Kirby generation had all gone. Whereas DC, I think they still those guys were still there. So Marvel for me, for sure.
So they got to get loose in the art room a little bit.
For sure, they did a lot more experimenting. Even when Shooter took over in 1980, I mean, he was the guy who said, "You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give a book to an artist, so that he's going to write and draw it." And that's when you got Frank Miller Daredevil, John Byrne and Chris Claremont on X-Men, Walt Simonson Thor. I mean, he did that. And then DC followed suit, but Marvel was much more about, we know you love these characters, but you really love the fact that John Byrne and Chris Claremont wrote this. And those guys' names were almost on the cover. So that was another thing that Marvel did, was it really it celebrated the creators. The DC creators, for years, you wouldn't even see their names in the book. You couldn't find them who actually did it. Marvel was the first to say, this was drawn and illustrated and edited by these people.
That's dope. And your favorite superhero?
Oh, man, I don't know. That's too hard. It's like asking my favorite rock band or rapper. I don't know. I don't know. Deathlock? I thought Deathlock was kind of cool. I don't know if they're ever going to make a Deathlock movie, but I thought he was. Do you know who Deathlock is, Greg?
Yes, I have those comics.
Oh, Mike,
I think they'll get to Deathlock. They'll get to Deathlock.
You think so?
They got some Moon Knight.
Oh, I'm full. That's why we got Mike here, man. Mike is the person I can just look at his reactions and see, like, okay, that's something I need to be.
So Deathlock was cool because Deathlock was half human, half cyborg, half robot, and the robot and the human would argue. Like, so the comics were literally the panels of them, the robot telling him, "Hey, this is going to happen," and the guy, "Hey, shut up!" And it was literally the
schizophrenia.
It was like it was the conversation in his mind. He's walking around like a post-apocalyptic, very like Omega Man sort of, landscape of like World War III. You don't know what's going on, but like World War III. It's like a conventional war in the United States, and the big cities are all like destroyed. Buying that as a little kid was it was incredible. Great stories. They didn't do much with him, but it'd be cool to see. I think like the Bourne Identity and stuff has kind of visited that theme. That whole super soldier cyborg thing has been kind of done a bunch of times. But if they do a Deathlock, it would be really cool. So
yeah.
And you, Mike, your favorite superhero?
Damn, that's a tough one too.
It is. It's tough.
It's really, because like I grew up with, like, Spider-Man was it. You know what I mean? Like, you can't really. It's hard to top that one. But then, I would say Spider-Man. That's just because I was and going back to what James was saying is like, and I'm just realizing this now because that's probably why I was a Marvel guy, is because I was at the age when they were like, hey, here's Jim Lee's going to draw and write X-Men. Oh, Todd McFarlane's going to draw Spider-Man. Look, you've never seen the webs like this. And then, Rob Liefeld's going to do New Mutants, and now it's X-Force. And it's like, that was like, boom. Like, could not be a more perfect time to get 12-year-old me to go to the comic book store and buy 8 copies of each one, because they made different colors and shit. Made you feel like you had to buy all of them. All the variations. The ones where they came with like bags and cards inside the comic. So it's like, I gotta buy 5 of these to collect and then 1 to open to read. So I got my 6th. This is ridiculous, but it worked.
It totally worked, man. They made so much money on that shit. Yeah,
branding. We were talking about branding and marketing and all that kind of cool stuff.
So sinker.
On the faux side of myself, the closest I got to any of that was the Spider-Man cartoon, and I thought that the jazz selections were pretty dope in the soundtrack. So that's where I'll, both of you had very in-depth conversations on the topic, and I'll leave it to some jazz tunes. Nah, that's dope. So with you, James, I don't know how close this hits home to you, but what do you think, or do you know anything that's going on with the writer's strike that's going on right now?
A lot of my friends are out of work, and they're, picketing, and it's affecting them in many ways. It's interesting to see how it's going to go. I mean, I get it. I understand. I understand the business model of the studios. What, and this is beyond the writer's strike. And I think that look, yes, that there's a crazy the way that those studios are set up, and the pay scale of the upper echelons is insane compared to what people get for a script. I mean, yeah, you can't argue that. What this does make me think, though, on a macro scale, is the idea of scripted TV, of scripted shows, the way we think of them now. You're not selling DVDs, everything's streaming. And here's the thing, I have 2 kids, and they watch 99% is someone on YouTube talking to the camera. There's no writers, there's no producers, there's no directors. It's some kid talking about Minecraft in front of a computer, and that's it. That's the content. That's what all the streaming services are competing against. And these kids make hours and hours and hours of this stuff, and they're crowding all that stuff out. It's on YouTube. We don't pay for it. I don't know what the studios and all of these production companies and writers and everybody else, I don't know what they're going to do in 10 years. I don't know if there's going to be studios in 10 years. They might be like what you guys were talking about, where they're going to be a box full of lawyers just tracking down rights and usage.
Oof.
I don't know. That's so writer strike. I get it, but I see what the winds are blowing for the big entities and the content creators. I just don't know what the answer is. It's a really tough one. You know,
I brought up this scenario several times because, you know, I'm a creature of habit. That's the thing. You watch me close enough, I'm like a horse or a dog. I'll walk the same path. You'll be able to look at the grass. You'll be able to look at the grass and see, yep, Greg was there. You know, I feel with you, and it was funny because I was going to ask you to kind of give me some context to the strike, but from what you just said, I feel the same way I felt when I was at Midem in France, maybe 2002, and a guy told me that the CD was going to be over. And I remember I just got this drop in my stomach, and I almost felt sick to my stomach because I had actually come out there to go and meet with distributors and stuff like that. And you saying that, you know, Brown is on top of the online technology student of just stuff that's going on in that world. Me, I'm learning something about myself with this episode of Splendid. My faux approach applies to a lot of things that I'm really interested in. I'm in them, but I have a faux approach, and like with social media and all that stuff, I'm like very light on it. I'm not like, I don't really like hop into the rabbit hole, but your analogy, James, it's, man, that is what it is, because it's kind of like, you know, content creation is kind of taking over everything. You know,
what are we doing right now? We're competing with Netflix right now. Someone's not watching Netflix if they're watching this, or maybe they're watching both, but Netflix knows this.
Yeah.
This didn't take a writing team to do this. I mean, I'm not saying we're saying anything amazing and great, but the fact of the matter is we're creating content that's competing against a room full of writers. Just, it is.
And you know what? That's so funny. That goes to a conversation that I had with Mike earlier today. And when I was telling him about the theme of this, because I want to do this like at least once every month and a half or so, I want to have a show on Splendid kind of like this, where I get some guys that are in the know of like the artistic stuff and the, you know, the Marvel, the DC, the knowledge of illustrators and just all, because I think I like that's another part of it. Like, I think it's dope. It's not anything that I was raised on, but me being very privileged with working with the Pharcyde and Brown and just like meeting guys like, man, I know James. Like, man, I really know. Mike thought James was, you know, dope. And I'm sure that James thinks that Mike is kind of dope. So I'm privileged to know people that are skilled at like a very astute level of what they know. Like they know their stuff. So with that being said, it's kind of like, you know, me looking at this whole content creation and everything, I really didn't know anything about the strike. I just know that people, I might have saw a little small clip online, and maybe I flashed through CNN or something over the weekend and I saw some picketers or whatever. But with the context of what James said, it's kind of like, damn, these people out there really fighting for their life, because, you know, and then to the conversation that that Mike and I had before we started, and I was telling him about kind of like my concept of this particular podcast, Disney. So when when Disney start purchasing the franchises, I remember listening to talk radio, and yeah, I never thought I'd be listening to talk radio. Never thought that's getting off. But I started listening to talk radio when I was about 30. But I remember people debating about Disney buying franchises, and people saying, "Oh, it's going to be the worst thing ever," and just da 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 da. But the funny thing about it is, I was talking to Mike about like Star Wars franchises, and I was telling him about The Mandalorian, and I was kind of like, damn, you know, they give you so much where if it's almost, now The Mandalorian would never be bigger than Star Wars, because Star Wars was like the beginning of a technology of movies and stuff like that. I mean, now, you know, I look at the old ones and I'm like, damn, the strings, you know what I'm saying? You're like, everything that was a big ooh and a ah back in the early 80s, now you're kind of looking at it like, man, this is like, it almost looks like you're looking at a Xerox copy magazine cover blown up. See the little dots or, you know, whatever. It's kind of like, that's not whatever. But then you have like The Mandalorian, where you have like all these actors, like, dude, I in The Mandalorian, between Mandalorian and Boba Fett, I've seen, oh man, Bill Burr. Oh my God. He's so talented, dude. He's an actor, man. He's like he wasn't funny at all in I think it was Boba Fett. It might have been, yeah, I think it was.
He was in The Mandalorian.
It was Mandalorian. Okay.
Season 2, yeah.
Wow, he wasn't funny at all, and he was killing it. I was just like, man, this dude is dope. So I say that to say that, you know, in order to compete with all the content coming out, you have these Mandalorians and these Boba Fett's and these small branch off franchises of the Star Wars franchise, and they pump out so much content in order to keep an audience. But the content, every episode is like a movie. Every single episode, like they're like, none of their episodes are they slacking in any aspect of what would keep the consumer engaged.
Well, it's like Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
It's like Game of Thrones. Every episode was like a crazy epic movie. That was an epic show, man. And it was on TV.
I couldn't catch it. I tried.
I'm just saying, if you look at the production values on that, it's like it's I mean, they went above and beyond, you know. So it's what you're saying.
So when I'll start with you, James, and then I'll go to Mike. So when you heard the talks, because you're in the know enough, like I know because of talk radio, but I'm sure you knew because of you being a fan and everything. When you heard that Disney was going to start purchasing franchises, what was the feeling in your stomach that you got when you heard that?
I mean, I don't know. I guess you could say, oh, DC owns my childhood now. I mean, Marvel owns my childhood now. I mean, but you know, I don't know. I don't really have a huge opinion on Disney owning it, frankly. I mean, I think it's kind of like, oh, okay, maybe they own it. Maybe they don't make any money with it, and then they get rid of it. Yeah, I've seen that happen so many times. So I didn't really feel any sort of betrayal or anything like that. It was more just like, oh, okay. And those are things that's like, you know, well, what am I going to do about it? You know, if they make a great movie and they got all this Disney, you know, budgets and back end, fantastic, great. But, you know, you get the look, Star Wars was a little scrappy indie startup. It was when that movie first came out. It was a bunch of hippies, and they barely got $10 million to do that. So when it goes to Disney, you go, it's not going to be the same thing. And then you look at those new movies; they were not. I mean, I wouldn't say they were good, but they weren't great. They weren't very inspired. You just knew there was a whole room full of executives second guessing every little goddamn element of those things. The script got rewritten probably 1,000 times, 3 directors, all this other kind of stuff. It's different. It's a different thing. So, but Mandalorian was great. So what do I know?
Well, I apologize to you, James, your wife, and your beautiful kids, because your mind being a little more advanced than my mind, you probably thought the question I asked you, you may end up in a writing room or a drawing room with Marvel or Disney or something like that. So I apologize for asking you a critical question on something that could impact future income to your household.
It's the way it is. What are you going to do? Fight it? What are you going to do? I mean,
and you, Mike, so how did you feel when you first heard the murmurs of Disney starting to acquire franchises?
I didn't feel. I mean, I know a lot of I have a lot of hardcore fan friends who are like, oh man, they're gonna ruin it. But dude, I'm not one of those people who feels like, oh man, my childhood. Dude, those movies are still there. You can watch. We could watch them. I'm Jalen. I'm sure you feel the same way. We can still watch the classics. It's fine. They can make everybody can make whatever they want. You can't. I don't feel like I'm expected to watch everything, or I don't have to love everything, or whatever. It's great. I think the more the merrier. I want to see more stuff, so that's cool.
Yeah.
All right.
That's what I feel. Did you guys see? Speaking of Disney, on Disney Plus, they have a making of Star Wars documentary. It's like a multi-part thing.
Oh, I heard. I want to watch it. I haven't seen it yet.
Dude, it's the one about the first. I mean, they go through the whole thing, but oh man, the way they made there's so much unreleased footage. Stuff I've never seen. Interviews that I mean, all new interviews with people, and it was wow, they really were super scrappy. It was I don't know how they did that. They made it in Van Nuys.
Yeah.
It's 115 degrees. They're trying to shoot the Death Star. I'm like, dude, this is ridiculous. They should not have done this. It should not have worked.
It's so funny, man. Yeah, it's an inspiring story.
Yeah.
Real quick, Mike. So this goes back to me not being a technical person. I'm more technical than some, but there's a lot that are far beyond whatever technical savvy I have. So is Disney Plus something separate than Disney?
Disney owns it. Disney Plus is their streaming service.
Oh, okay. So I got Disney Plus. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. No, when you said, I just think of it as Disney. So okay, I was like,
damn, right.
I gotta get another subscription.
No, it's on there. If you go to the Star Wars section.
Okay.
I forgot what it was called, but it's a 3 or 4 part docu-series.
Oh no, they got all incredible.
I want to watch it.
Yeah, when you go to the Marvel, it's just man, it just goes on and on. It's that's a rabbit hole within itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, with you, James, music lover, illustrator, might not get it from putting eyeballs on you, but hip hop aficionado, you know what I'm saying? Hardcore hip hop head. Man, you can ride a Vespa and listen to some Run the Jewels at the same. probably bumping Run the Jewels while you're riding.
Embarrassing me.
What's your most iconic moment?
Iconic moment in general?
Yeah. Just to do somewhere in the medium between hip hop and illustration.
Iconic moment. I mean, talking to Biz Markie on the phone, when I got the job animating his video.
That's something.
That was amazing. That was kind of it was my second job, my second project. I'm talking about what we talked about last time, but I was at work and he called me like it's one of the things you get the call from the rep or the label first, and they say, well, he's going to call you in about 10 minutes. And then all of a sudden you see the light and you pick up and you go, hey, how's it going, Bismarcky? I mean, yeah, it was cool. And he just, he was probably, I think he was eating at the time when he was talking to me. He was telling me, yeah, that sounds, he's like, yeah, it's cool, man. Okay, great. He's like, random person, who am I? And he just gave me his 2 cents in terms of what he wanted the character to look like. And yeah, that would be one of them for sure. It's pretty cool. You put the phone down, you look around, you go, I can't believe I just talked to. So yeah.
Nah, that's dope. Like, who had I don't know about your day, but my day was pretty awesome today.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And you, Mike, one of your most iconic moments?
Most iconic, when you say most iconic moment, is that like the most memorable for, or
yeah
you feel like this is, yeah, huh? I think
I want to hear
I always
this.
I kind of just go back to this is gonna be boring. It's just when I played Coachella, that was it for me. Because I played it as,
what year was this?
2008. It was the year Rage Against the Machine came back.
That's like peak Coachella, man. Wow.
Yeah. I was really fortunate that year, and it was just like, nothing crazy happened. Like, it just went as good as it could have gone, and I was like, all right, that was.
Nah, man. That's a big, me.
Well, because you guys are performers. I just have a question. So when you do something like that and you look out into a sea of people, that just seems unimaginable.
It's unreal.
Yeah.
It's unreal. You have like an out-of-body experience. It's like, oh shit. Like, because I know what it's like on the other side, and it looks amazing. And it's a packed, the Sahara tent is like, I don't know how many people you could fit in that tent, whatever, but to me it felt like 20,000 people. I was like, God damn, here we are. And I just remember like just how it smelled and how it just kind of felt. I was like, do not fucking forget this right now. Like, to take it, I've done a lot of, I've done some cool stuff, but like that in particular, just because I feel like I had done a bunch of like tours leading up to it, and I felt like, because also that was a couple years before that, like Daft Punk had like debuted the Pyramid set, and it was like, oh, did you see Daft Punk at Coachella?
Yeah, wow.
And I was like, damn, okay, this is the goal then. This is the goal, to be there. So I was like, wow, all right, I'm here. Cool. Now I'm gonna do my thing, and yeah, it's been amazing.
Okay, I'm gonna share one of my iconic moments, non-Pharcyde related. Mike hits me up and he's like, and once again, I'm just a nerd. Like, I won't say a nerd, because that means you do know something about something. I'm so unknowledgeable about so much. And Mike hits me up and he's like, yo, man, I got this little thing going on and you really should be there. And blah, 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 blah. And I'm kind of like, da, da. And so Mike has been hired as the DJ for Fortnite to do this. They took a upstairs parking garage, an open space parking garage, and converted it into a festival for like 500 people, maybe, or something. It, like, we've gone to, like, Mike and I have been to some miniature festivals, and I mean miniature festivals where somebody blew like 200,000 or 300,000, and that's a small budget for a festival. But we've been to some small festivals, but they blew. I had no idea what Fortnite and the whole, like, so first of all, they have an all-you-can-eat Shake Shack. They have an all-you-can-eat, like all these all-you-can-eat dope little food, and not no-name stuff. I mean, stuff that you would be familiar with. All these little things to feed their the Fortnite. It was the Fortnite. It was something. It was a party for the Fortnite Olympians or something like that. Because I remember I was sitting down with this guy who was he had just graduated school, the UCLA medical school, and he was doing his internship as a brain surgeon. And he was explaining to me how he mentored students that wanted to get into the field of brain surgery, but they needed to, like, I guess he kind of was like a mentor or whatever, but this dude was like 28 years old. Like, he wasn't some old dude or what, and he was from Russia. So he came from Russia, he was out there, and he had won something in the Fortnite Olympics. And so he was telling me how he was doing his internship for brain surgery. He was mentoring these students from UCLA who wanted to get into that field. And he gave Fortnite 30 to 35 hours a week. And I'm like, damn. I'm like,
yeah, that's crazy, man.
And but the thing about it was, he was explaining to, and this was before, this was years before COVID, but he was explaining to me how much money he made off of Twitch. And he was like, dude, people pay to watch us play these games. And it was, I don't even.
That's like what James was saying. Like that's what Netflix is competing against.
Yeah,
it's the same eyeballs. It's the same time. All these companies are competing for our time.
Yes.
It's scary.
Yep. Awake time, the time you don't sleep.
So I'll start with you, Mike, then I'll go to James. Mike, would you ever pay the money to not have commercials on YouTube?
I do. Dude, it's the best. It's the best. Yeah, done.
I'm so cheap. And time is money.
Dude. When I open a browser that I'm not logged into and it doesn't have the premium, I'm like, oh my God, there's so many commercials. Like, you can, like, just think about if you watched, I don't know, 5 minutes worth of commercials every day, that's like a full video. That's a full, you could just go, like, it's especially because you watch and you listen to music on YouTube, it's just on, right? Like, try it. Just try it. It'll, especially for you, because I know how much you have, you'll have like comedy on, you'll have like music on, and it's on YouTube. Dude, it won't cut through. No, there's no ads. It's
how much a month is this?
It's like $15.
It's a steal for the time.
Dude, that's 50 cents a day.
No, Pete.
It is, yeah.
That's why Mike is my guy. That's why Mike is my guy.
It's so worth it.
I was like, damn, you're getting brainwashed. Like, dude, there's just so many, and then you got to click, skip. You got to click, skip. I skip so much during the course of a day.
Splendid Radio has so many ads.
So many ads.
Oh my God! Every
right
minute,
now.
It's like I just want to hear myself talk. I don't want to watch another ad.
Dang.
It's worth it, man. It's super worth it. Even and before, like, I've had it for years, and before it was like, oh, you get to watch like Cobra Kai because it had like original programming. They don't even have that anymore, and I still like it. I'm still cool with it. So not to see the ads is worth it to me.
So from that tone, I would take it, James, that you're in the same boat as me and you just hit skip.
I hit skip. It's more just because I'm just too lazy. I have a lot of subscriptions and I'm just always worried that I lose track of them. So, but I probably should. I watch a lot of YouTube. I listen to a lot of YouTube. I love when I'm just hearing a neuroscientist talk about something, whatever, and he's going to talk for an hour, or Steven Pinker is going to talk about like, whatever, behavior in mammals. I'll just listen to that and work. So I do listen to a lot of it. So it might be worth it.
So while you're doing creative stuff, you listen. Damn, that's and I just listen to house music. I need to switch
podcasts.
Maybe
you know what though? But listen, I'll say this much, man. I listen to a lot of talking, I don't know if that's a great thing. I do like to listen to music, but that's so hard, man. It's like, and I'm I'm too I'm too stubborn with my music. I'm like, I like music from that era. New
Same.
music is just, especially my kids. I don't want to listen to the same music they listen to. I don't want to be one of these parents who's like, I take my kids to the concert to go see blah blah blah. It's like, no, I have my thing, and I want to listen to the Pogues because they're from the '80s, and they're blah 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 blah. I'm totally stuck, and I don't care. I just
We're yacht rocking, man. We're yacht
I know.
rocking.
I'd much rather listen to Steely Dan.
Weirdos.
I'd much rather listen to. I just do. I guess if we're gonna get in the music that we listen to, I like old music. I always liked old music. I liked old music when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. I called the DJ, and I asked him to play. I asked him to play DJ Red Alert because DJ Red Alert had a record called Hip Hop on Wax, I think Volume 2, and it was just hip scratch. It was one of those scratch missing records from the '80s. Just like, I love. I still love those records, but I asked him to play it, but it was from '83, and the DJ told me in '84. He's like, "Oh, that's an oldie. I'm not going to play that." First time I heard in regards to hip hop, but probably in regards to rock, they're like, we're not going to play it. That's from last year. That record's old. And I remember hearing that and being like really disappointed. Like, but it's so good. You just don't care about it anymore just because it's from last year. It's all new. And everything's very like fresh, new. This is the new jam or whatever. That was always the thing. But I never really got into that. I like, I think especially when hip hop matured and got into the '90s, we all wanted those Tower of Power records. We all wanted those breaks, all those original records. That's what ended up happening. I was always like that. I always loved oldies, so I still do.
Well, nah, man, this has been dope. I'm gonna come up with a format to this, but man, I appreciate both you guys being it because I've had this whole like the conversation that we had tonight. A lot of it was really for me, man. Like, and I knew that the two of you could give me some insight and kind of, like I said, I know people. I happen to be fortunate enough to know people that are at the top of their game, and I consider both of you guys my cheat codes. So I was
I'm honored to be your cheat code. Honored.
I was able to, yeah, man. Maybe one day, I will not be a faux comic and Star Wars franchisee fan. James, Deathlock.
Mm-hmm.
So Deathlock is the okay. So Deathlock is the comic book that I'm going to do some research on and kind of
recommend it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So with that being said, James, what's your social media information?
Just Instagram at TFU Studios. That's my studio. It's got my work on there and stuff. And if you want to get in touch with me, that's the best place to probably reach out.
And James does do illustration, and I have had him help me on music related and non-music related illustrations. And if he has the time, and treat yourself. Treat yourself. James is a pretty dope guy. Other than being cool homeboy, he's definitely at the top of his game. And Mr. Mike Relm.
Just at Mike Relm everywhere. That's it.
and Mike is a incredible DJ, video DJ, director, all this other technical stuff and whatnot. And he's definitely one of my cheat codes. So with that being said, this has been another. Oh, you know what? So we had a couple people in the chat, and I didn't get back because Jeremy has his brain can work left and right independently, and my mind can only focus on one thing at a time. So I want to give a shout out to Matt Brooks. He was in the chat. DJ Uncle Phil and Jesus Perez. You know what I'm saying? So that's what's up with that. So it's been another episode of Splendid Radio on Pharcyde TV, and we're out.